Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters video. Well, this is the last one for this particular time period. I'll be doing some more in a couple of weeks here, but following again with a theme involving the weirdest, most bizarre cryptids out there in this world. This one I came across actually when I was doing some research information on the Piazza bird, and once I saw this I realized I had to talk about this particular cryptid. It wasn't suggested by anybody, but I'll do this every now and then when I come across something that is so fascinating. I'm sure you as fans will love to enjoy it, so that's why I picked this particular entry here. And this one is truly bizarre. It's almost hard to believe, but apparently this is a legend that is, to this day, happening there in the Amazon jungle. Someone just posted, in fact, asking if I believe a lot of these cryptids that are being presented and given information on. As I mentioned before, the whole thing about my YouTube channel here is I just present the information as is. It's up to yourselves to believe whether or not it's true. I believe that some of them are true, some of them obviously are a lot harder to prove the details on, but at the end of the day it's just about sharing information and about seeing how fun and weird and bizarre and original and interesting some of these cryptids really are, especially if you consider the fact that if some of these are truly real, then we have some of the most craziest living things, if you could call them things, in this world. And it'd be very fascinating if one day if there's truly proof on some of these. But in this case, this particular entity, it's called Boto, B-O-T-O, and it's a pink shape-shifting dolphin that's located near the rivers of the Amazon jungle. No exact location per se, like in terms of a geographic location, like if it's near a certain village or if it's near a certain town. Instead, it's just near, if you're in the Amazon jungle and you're near a river, then you have a much higher chance of experiencing this particular cryptid, again called Boto. And it's been around for quite some time, not necessarily hundreds of years, but at least according to the legends, it's been around long enough for people to document it and have it become yet another one of those past tales where one family tells it to their next generation of family, and then they tell it to the next one, and it goes on and on. So what is Boto? Well, Boto, as I mentioned earlier, is a dolphin, but he's a very unique dolphin in that he's pink colored, which is quite a rare sight, and then B, he's a shape shifter, which goes along with some of the other cryptids I've talked about in the past, like the Aswang is one that stands out. And when you're dealing with something like a shape shifter, you're dealing with an entity that can trick people into believing it's something else entirely. But in this case, the Boto cryptid is not doing necessarily anything bad, at least per se, like it's not evil oriented, but rather it shapeshifts into a human man. That's the only thing it apparently shapeshifts into. And the reason for this, and again the reason I picked this cryptid, continuing along the weird theme, is because it shapeshifts into a man because it loves to party. That's right, you heard that right. It loves to partay. And it does this because whenever there's a festival nearby in some town, whenever there's a party going on, a big, huge ruckus, whatever it could be, it shapeshifts into a man, and not just any kind of man, but apparently a well-dressed young man, somebody who is very striking, somebody who has, let's say, very charming looks, because its sole purpose is to try to party with the ladies and to try to essentially score that night. And I'll explain some of the reasons why people think Boto still exists to this day in a couple of minutes. So that's his only power, is the ability to shapeshift into a man. It doesn't have any other kind of supernatural powers, short of one bizarre thing. Apparently some people claim that whenever it shapeshifts into this quote-unquote well-dressed young man, it has the ability again to sway young women, and it could be because of its good looks, but some people have suggested that it's because actually it has some form of hypnotic powers, that it can control or persuade people to do its bidding. That's probably the closest thing to anything bad that Boto does. But otherwise, again, the whole purpose of him shapeshifting into a man is to leave the water at night, blend in with the villagers, go in towards whatever party, whatever festival is happening, and then for the sole purpose of trying to celebrate and then have good time with the ladies, and then hopefully try to score some with the ladies there. Now, the people that have experienced Boto state that he's always somebody that is coming into town, but nobody recognizes him from before. Like, in other words, he's an outsider. He's not one of the villagers. He's not somebody that people know who he is. So whenever somebody comes in, and they are especially a striking, again, well-dressed young man, and they're an outsider, almost like a tourist of sorts, then people, tell themselves, oh no, it's Boto. He's come back. He's come back to try to, let's say, blend in with us, but it's kind of hard to do so because of his good looks. The striking way to find out whether it's Boto is he always has a hat, and the reason for this is because this hat conceals the one major flaw of Boto. Despite the fact that it can shapeshift into a man and essentially become a whole complete man, its blowhole from its dolphin form remains on top of its head. So the only way it can conceal it is to always have a hat on, even under times when maybe it wouldn't make sense to have a hat. Like, let's say if you're indoors, or let's say it's sometime at night, but Boto in human form will still nonetheless always have a hat on, and then that way it'll cover its blowhole completely. But in any case, its whole purpose, again, is just try to go in and try to have some good time with the ladies. Apparently that's Boto's weakness, no matter what. And whenever it's in town, it loves to have the ability to just dance with the ladies, try to strike up some romance with them, and then try to take them back someplace, either to the lady's own place or to Boto's own place, maybe a hotel, something that it that it rents on its own for just a couple of nights, that kind of stuff. Now, the reason why the Boto legend exists is because anytime there's a sudden surge of unexplained pregnancies in and around some communities there in the Amazon, that's when people say, oh, it's because of Boto. It's because of Boto coming into town, again, having a good time with the ladies, and then because he goes back to his dolphin-like form and essentially becomes, like a deadbeat and just leaves the ladies as is with the baby, that's when these unexplained pregnancies people acknowledge to Boto. And this happens especially when there's a surge of these unexplained pregnancies, and then that's when they start questioning whether Boto has actually come into town. And it's to the point where anytime that, again, somebody that's not a local, somebody that comes in, a young man, good looking, just all of a sudden pops into town, it's to the point where these people do not want him to be in town because they don't want another set of babies there to have to take care of, with Boto just essentially being a deadbeat and running off. And so anytime that happens, when a young man suddenly there is in town and for no other reason, then they'll ask him to remove his hat, and that way they can ensure that it is not a quote-unquote Boto in disguise. So how awkward must that be? Imagine if you're a tourist there in the Amazon, you're coming from someplace else, maybe from America, maybe from Europe, from Australia, who knows, and you fit what would be considered the description of Boto's alter ego. You are just wandering around, just exploring the area, but you always have a hat on, maybe for the sunny conditions, and then you have all of a sudden a whole bunch of locals asking you to please remove your hat just to inspect and make sure that you're not the real deal, that you're not Boto himself. Now, all the good stuff, all the stuff that I mentioned about Boto, again, it's primarily on the good side, like nothing really bad when it comes to his actions, but there are still some people who say that Boto every now and then does go towards more of an evil side, and these are the only known instances of when that happens. Anytime there's also a rash of young women being abducted or young women lost, they acknowledge it to Boto, because apparently Boto lives from a land called Encante, and this is an underwater land that he comes from directly. And when he's looking particularly for some kind of mate, he will take this woman or young women and then essentially take them away from the village, and they're never seen from again. And because presumably he takes them back to that land that he comes from. Of course, it could be said that this is nothing else other than the women themselves being abducted by normal men, like bad men, people that have come to town to do bad things, but the legend of Boto still comes up, and so they acknowledge it as it being tied to him. But that's how some people state, because also when these in some cases these young women that are missing for quite some time come back, but they're pregnant, and when they come back pregnant, then that's when they truly say, oh no, it's Boto, he struck again. You know, he kidnapped her, took her back to the land, and then after a couple of time period, maybe weeks, months, whatever, then she's back, but of course she's now pregnant. But again, that could be tied to something else 100% more realistic based, where these young women unfortunately were truly kidnapped and a lot of bad things happened to them, and so they came back pregnant. But in any case, another one that comes by that's kind of on the bad side of Boto is if you do see a pink dolphin swimming in and around the Amazon River, if you stare at it and it stares back, like you make direct eye contact, you're not supposed to. You're supposed to avoid direct eye contact. The reason for this is Boto is still obviously within his dolphin form. He's not in human form, so maybe he's not as nice. And whenever this happens and he realizes that you're looking at him and he's looking at you, then he's supposed to give you some kind of nightmares for the rest of your life, and so you try to avoid that. So if you're ever in the Amazon jungle and you happen to see a pink dolphin, but you haven't made direct eye contact with the pink dolphin, then just steer clear away. Just try to get away as soon as possible, or at least try to avoid direct eye contact if you can. But yeah, Boto, the shape-shifting pink dolphin, even to this day, villagers tell their children, their young women especially, to stay away from the river at night, because this is when Boto is more likely to come out, whenever he does come out. There's no known frequency, no known schedule when it comes to Boto. It's just primarily tied to festivals and party-themed events. But in any case, they tell their young women to stay away at night, because that's when he's most likely to come out, shapeshift into a young man, and then that's when he can start having, you know, those quote-unquote hypnotic spells cast on young women. So that's when they tell him to stay away. So truly bizarre, huh? Is this true? Is this 100% false? I don't know, but it is an actual legend. Like, this is a telltale kind of thing that's been passed down there in the Amazon, and it's there. I mean, it truly is something that people have talked about. It's no different than, let's say, here, or anything involving the lumberjack tales that I recently described. So there in the Amazon, this is there, so that's why I present it to you here, and that's why it ended this particular theme, because I found this to be one of the most weird, one of the most bizarre cryptids that I have come across yet. Here you have a pink shape-shifting dolphin whose sole purpose is to try to get some action when it shape-shifts into a man. So pretty interesting stuff. So alright, everybody, thanks again as always. I'll probably do some more videos here in a couple of weeks. Be on the lookout for those. I'll be doing next some urban legend videos, so be on the lookout for some suggestions too as well. So alright, everybody, take care.